In this video, I will go over my 6 market predictions for 2023, see how I did, as well as making my 6 market predictions for 2024. Welcome back. This is episode 183. Happy New Year. I hope all of you had a great holiday and your new year is off to a fabulous start. And at the beginning of 2023, I made 6 market/financial predictions for the year. And if you want to go back and listen to those, you can go to retirewithryan.com/podcast/132 for episode 132. However, I'll be going over what those market predictions were in this episode and seeing how I did, as well as making my market predictions for 2024. And at the beginning of the year, it's often a time where we reflect on our goals for the upcoming year. And if one of your goals is to develop a better plan for retirement, then consider signing up for my online retirement planning course, Retirement Readiness Review. I'll walk you through all the steps in planning the ultimate retirement. And this course contains over 7 hours of video tutorials with me, as well as many helpful checklists on how to implement what I will teach you. And you also have lifetime access to this material as well. Normally, this retails for $297 plus tax, but as a New Year's bonus to help get you started out on the right foot, I am extending a 25% discount on the price of the course from now until February 1st. You need to use the code RETIRE25. And I offered a discount at the end of 2023, and I had a number of people sign up for that. So I want to continue to offer that discount. So again, if you head over to retirewithryan.com/on-demand and use the code RETIRE25, you can receive a 25% discount by signing up for that course. So let's review what my market predictions were for 2023. My first market prediction was on the S&P 500. In 2022, the S&P 500 was down about 20%, and a lot of people probably thought I was crazy to predict in 2023 that it would go up 28%. I was very close. The S&P returned just under 25% for the year in 2023. And unlike a lot of analysts that make market predictions, I just make one market prediction for the year. I don't go back and change it. And I wasn't feeling too good after the major sell-off that we had in August, September, and October as far as hitting this prediction. But the market rallied very heavily in November and December based off of information that inflation was lessening, and finished out the year very strongly. And just as a reminder, historically, the S&P 500, which has, if we measure it from 1927, has declined 32 times, and the average decline has been about 14%. So my next market prediction was growth stocks or value stocks, which will perform better. And if you're not familiar, growth stocks are stocks that are growing their earnings, in some case have no earnings. These are generally your technology and biotech stocks, while value stocks are your more established companies, your blue chips, so to speak, that are trading at a discount. And since 1927, value stocks have outperformed growth stocks by an average margin of 4% per year. However, in the past 12 years, growth has outperformed value 8 of 12 years prior to 2023. In 2022, value did much better than growth. It only declined about 8%, while growth declined about 29%. So my prediction for 2023 was that growth would outperform value, and I was right. Growth continued to outperform value, and there's a lot of different ways to measure growth stocks, but I'm measuring it by looking at the Russell 1000 growth versus the Russell 1000 value. There are 2 indexes of growth and value stocks. And Vanguard has a fund that tracks the Russell 1000 growth and the Russell 1000 value. And the Russell 1000 growth fund returned 43% last year, led mostly by what is now being dubbed the Magnificent Seven stocks. And those are NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, formerly Google, Apple, Meta, formerly Facebook, and Tesla. And the Vanguard Russell 1000 value returned 11.42%, which is certainly not a bad year, but it's not a great year compared to a 25% return for the S&P 500 and a 43% return for the Russell 1000 value. So you certainly missed out if you were heavily invested in value stocks. My next prediction was large or small. And you can categorize stocks based on the value of their company or their market capitalization. Large cap stocks are worth generally over 10 billion or more. Small cap are less than 2 billion. And the reason I mention this is that if you measure large cap stocks by the S&P 500 and small cap by the Russell 2000, you can see major differences in performance. And my prediction for 2023 was that small cap would outperform large cap. This one I missed the mark on, as the S&P 500, as I mentioned, returned almost 25%, but the Russell 2000 earned almost 17%, which is still a good year. But if you were following the Russell 2000 throughout the year, you would have realized that through October, the Russell 2000 was barely up on the year, and it made a significant comeback in the fourth quarter, gaining almost 14%. My next prediction was Bitcoin or gold. And this is something you might not be thinking about, but if you're trying to hedge your portfolio against the markets using something that's called non-correlated assets, meaning that an investment that's not tied to the stock or bond market, gold is something that sometimes fits that. And in recent years, people have really added Bitcoin to that. However, if you look at the price of Bitcoin in recent years, it generally does track the S&P 500. So it's up to you whether you want to add this into your portfolio. And in 2022, Bitcoin had one of its worst years ever, declining 81%. Gold had a decent year, making 3%. So you might be wondering, was Bitcoin a good investment to make at the end of 2022? And it actually was. My prediction here was that Bitcoin would continue to outperform gold. And this one I was right on. I certainly wouldn't have imagined that it would be such a big disparity. But Bitcoin last year earned 154%, a significant amount of money, and gold gained 13%. A 13% gain, again, is a good gain, but it's not a good gain in a year where if your alternative was Bitcoin, it made 154%. So much of the gain in Bitcoin right now is being fueled by the belief that Bitcoin is going to come out in an ETF, exchange traded fund version, where you'll be able to invest into it without having to buy the physical Bitcoin. So one of the reasons Bitcoin's so popular is because it's hard to trace and you can have it in this digital wallet. But there's problems with that. People lose their digital keys to their wallets. They can be hacked. So it is kind of scary for some people to invest in Bitcoin. And one way around that is if there's a Bitcoin ETF, essentially a spot Bitcoin ETF, an ETF that will track the price of the ETF, just like a gold ETF does, then that might be something that could be more appealing to you. So I'm personally not sold on Bitcoin yet, but it is something that you could make a part of your portfolio. The next prediction was whether or not domestic stocks or international stocks were going to be the place to be. Was it going to be domestic or international that would do better? And this is another area of the markets that you might want to invest in. International stocks, that is, non-U.S. stocks. It's estimated that only 40% of all the publicly traded stocks that you could buy are listed on major U.S. exchanges. The rest are on foreign exchanges. And there's a number of funds that can invest in them, but two funds that I was comparing, one is the State Street Spider World X US ETF, the symbol's SPDW, compared to the Spider S&P 500 ETF, which is SPLG. And prior to this year, in 12 of the last 12 years, SPLG had outperformed SPDW 9 of the 12 years. And in 2022, SPDW returned a negative 16%. That's the international. And SPLG returned a negative 18%. So my prediction here was that U.S. markets SPLG would continue to outperform international markets SPDW. And as I mentioned, SPLG, which is the S&P 500, returned almost 25% in 2023. But SPDW did pretty good. It made 18%. It was certainly a much better year than I expected. considering the conflict in Ukraine that was going on as we were going into 2023, and some unforeseen conflicts like the conflict in Gaza. This was another one that I was right on. So if you're keeping score, so far I am 4 for 5. And my last prediction was interest rates as measured by the federal funds rate. And that's the rate that the Federal Reserve sets to try to control the borrowing in our economy. That's the rate that they charge other banks to borrow money, and then the rate that generally banks pass on to you, the consumer. So going into 2023, the big question was, were rates going to be higher or lower at the end of 2023? Were we going to be in a recession? And if we were, was the Federal Reserve going to have to lower rates? This was the talk of Wall Street for much of 2023. It was what the market's really hanging on. What is the Federal Reserve indicating, or what are they saying they're going to do? And we began the year at 4.5%, and we ended the year, it's within a range of 5.25 to 5.50, which is right in line with my prediction of 5.25% for 2023. So one reminder that I mentioned at the end of last year, which would still ring true, is that because we have this higher federal funds rate, it's very easier for you now to put your money that was normally sitting in the bank earning 0% interest into a CD, a money market, a high yield savings account, and earn 3, 4, 5% interest. So if you haven't done that, please go back and do that. You can go check out episode 116, retirewithryan.com/podcast/116, or search the 7 best short-term investments to grow your money if you haven't already done that. So again, if we tally my score here, I went 5 for 6. Certainly better than I would have expected to do. I'm ecstatic with how I did. And, that's pretty incredible. But remember, these are guesses, educated guesses. So before you go and implement all these recommendations that I'm about to make, realize that, the best course of action is to stick with a diversified portfolio. So let's get on to my predictions for 2024. The S&P 500, I'm predicting an 11% return, and the S&P 500 will end the year at 5293. Growth or value, Russell 1000 growth or Russell 1000 value stocks. I believe growth will continue to dominate again in 2024. Large or small, large cap stocks, the S&P 500 or the Russell 2000. I'm going with small cap again. Small cap stocks are still well below their highs, and I think there's opportunity there. Bitcoin versus gold. I'm going with Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will continue to outperform gold. I think there's a strong likelihood that the spot Bitcoin ETF will be approved. USA or the world, SPLG or SPDW. I'm going again with USA. I still think that there's too many negative factors going on with international markets, and it's not quite yet time to really take advantage of that. And my final prediction is the federal funds rate. Where will we be? Will rates be higher or lower? And what's my guess for where the federal funds rate will be? I believe rates will be lower next year. I believe there will be 2 cuts in interest rates, bringing us down from 5.25 to roughly 4.75. So again, these are my predictions for 2024. These are educated guesses at best. It's a fun thing to do. I always advise having a diversified portfolio, but it is fun to make these predictions. And just like I have reviewed them, from last year, I'll do the same thing in 2025 to see how I did, and we'll see how my batting percentage holds up. 2023 was certainly a difficult investing year. There were a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of things that you had to factor into your portfolio or that could dissuade you from your long-term strategy. And I want to congratulate you if you stuck with things, you stuck with your strategy, stuck with the stock market, and you were rewarded for that. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be like this, but I'm hoping that 2024 is a little easier year, but I'm sure there still will be plenty of bumps in the road that can really throw you off and make you second guess your long-term strategy. So best wishes for 2024, and I'll check back in 2025 on these predictions. And as always, if you have a question that you want to have considered for a future episode, Please go to retirewithryan.com and click on Ask a Question. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to talking to you next Wednesday. Take care.